Actually, my buddy had to go back to Argentina, but he wanted me to pass on a question to you. In your colonization game, you have the people killing off the Indians, but later on there were no slaves. Was there any particular reason why you took out the slaves?
We've been asked the question, why no slavery in civilization or colonization or our historical games? We just didn't think that would add to the game playing experience. I think one of our other rules in game playing is kind of this moral dilemma idea that we don't want to put the player in a position where to win I need to do something that I'm going to be uncomfortable with tomorrow. You know, that's not fun. That's not fun as a game. And we were asked a question in Pirates. You know, why is there no scurvy in Pirates? Scurvy, you know, was a very well-known phenomenon in the days of Pirates, and you know, it's a big concern. Probably half the conversations at the time of Pirates were about, do you have scurvy or do you not? You know, how much scurvy do you have? So, you know, again, I think that's one of those things that had we added it, would not have added any fun or play value, but, you know, and in many ways game design is about what not to put in. Because in the topics that we deal with, civilization or pirates or things like that, there's tons and tons of stuff we could do. But we're kind of trying to find the core of the most fun elements and make that the game. And, you know, for various reasons, scurvy, you know, I'll use that as an example, just didn't make the final cut of game features that we had to have. You know, how many lemons do you have?
You had to eat a certain amount of lemons every day.
Yeah, how did you eat your lemons today? Just work, no fun.
I also just want to thank you for taking the time to come and do this.
You're welcome. I have to say, everyone has been very kind and generous and friendly and welcoming, and I do appreciate that. Thanks.
So I just had a quick question. What games, if any, inspired you to become a game designer?
Actually, growing up in the dark days before computer video games, I did play a lot of games, board games, strategy games, things like that. But I probably, the first video games I remember playing were Space Invaders and Pac-Man and games like that. Yeah, let's hear it for those games. It always amazed me how Space Invaders, I think, is the great example how these very simple graphics and sounds could convince me that the Earth was under attack by aliens from outer space, and it was up to me to determine the fate of the Earth. You know, when I saw that, it was like, oh, this is cool. You know, I've got to get involved. This is just so much fun. So probably those very early games, kind of, in spite of their simplicity, kind of pointed the way to what was possible with video games, and you know, that inspired me to become a game designer. In those days, basically that involved getting a computer and sitting down and saying, I am now a game designer. There was no team, there was no support. It was just make a game, put it in a plastic baggie, and try and sell it to somebody. So in many ways, I was fortunate to be kind of in the right place at the right time. You know, so it's a lot more difficult these days to get involved in the industry. Although we are seeing a kind of a throwback with the indie movement, where it is again possible to kind of, yay, indie. For a small game to really become popular, you know, small team to make a game that can really make an impact. So, you know, there was a question earlier about kind of the commercial versus the creative, and I think the indie is another area where we're seeing a lot of creativity, and that's great for our industry. Yes.
One of the things that's been happening recently is a surge in like university video game training things. You can now get a bachelor's degree in video game design. Do you see that as a plus or a negative? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I've always believed that the best way to learn how to design a game is to design a game. I don't think there's a, you know, kind of a rule, a set of rules, a cookbook for making games. So I don't think that, you know, that simply going through a course on game design makes a person a game designer. I think if you have passion for it, a talent for it, it's probably a way of kind of learning some basics and kind of expressing that talent. But I think in a lot of universities, it's a way to get students come here and you can play video games all day. There's an excellent program, however, I have to say at Carnegie Mellon that a number of our interns and employees come from that really takes you through the process of making a game in teams. And one very interesting thing that they do is they actually give the students the rights to the games that they make. That's one thing to kind of be aware of is when you make a game at a university. Yes, Carnegie Mellon, yay. I didn't go there, unfortunately, but it's a fine place. But I think those are two things to look at, though. Is the program that you're considering one that actually lets you make a game yourself, puts you in an environment that gives you tools to actually succeed, and then kind of what are the kind of legal and rights issues involved with that? So that's a wishy-washy answer, but I think the jury's still out on university approved video game designers.
Well, my question's about game design too, but this is about AI. Like, I don't know if you remember playing Civ 2. One of the things that really, really made me angry about the deity level was that it had no brains. It just had productivity cheats, more technology, more everything, but it had no brains. And Civ 4, it's the same deal. Like, once you go past Prince level, all the AI has is just productivity.
More stuff. Yes,
it doesn't have more intelligence.
Yes. A, that's why it's A. That's what the A stands for, artificial. This is actually a question that we think about, and is one of the challenges of game design is the whole area of AI and what do players really want out of AI. I think one thing we hear is we want the AI to play like a human being. That's kind of the holy grail of AI, is that it feels like you're playing another human being. I'm not 100% sure that that's true. In a game like Civilization, for example, where you're playing against maybe 7 other civs or 5 other civs or sometimes 15 other civs, if the AI played as well as a human being, then you would kind of win just one time out of 8 or whatever. Would you actually win the game? In my experience, most Civ players win like 80–90% of the time. So there's some, there's perhaps a discrepancy between what people think they want and what they really want. I think they want a challenging experience. They want a struggle, but at the end of the day, they want to come out successful and win. Now, there's certainly some legitimate issues in terms of AI, the idea of cheating, the idea of is it just the AI gets more stuff when the difficulty level goes up. I have to plead, also time constraints. We have a lot of stuff to put in the game, and we do our best with AI. But at the end of the day, AI is basically a measuring stick to measure your progress. So you really, in a lot of ways, you don't want it to be too smart, because you want to kind of feel that you're gradually getting smarter and smarter than it. One of the reasons we put difficulty levels in the game is because we're kind of opposed to the idea of this rubber band AI concept, like the better you do, the AI starts to cheat and get better. There's really not much satisfaction in that, because you're always just kind of barely winning by having difficulty levels and the AI kind of being designed for those levels. You get the satisfaction of moving on to the next level and being able to kind of see your improvement. So thanks for that question.